The forbidden room, nothing in that mansion happened by accident. Wide corridors, the hush of carpets, the smell of polished wood, everything obeyed a rule older than words. That night, 2 soft pairs of footsteps crossed a marble like a secret. About 2 burst, Samir and Nabil, sons of Sheikh Malik, slipped toward the only door no one touched. Isla Navarro, the new nanny, heard the rush from the servants' annex, ran back, and found them on the king bed, one shaking, the other tugging the coverlet as if it were a harbor. She hushed them and stayed only to make sure fear loosened its grip. Minutes later, the door cracked open. Sheikh Malik entered unannounced, authority carried like a climate. He saw the woman at the edge of his bed and the boys sleeping beside her. Shock detonated. "What are you doing in my room?" he asked. Isla raised a finger to spare the sleepers. His hand cut the air. A dry sound. She did not cry. She touched her cheek, kissed 2 small foreheads, and walked out steady. Alone, Malik stared at his son sleeping deeply for the first time in months, and something in him whispered that perhaps the error was not hers. The quiet that followed was not peace. It was the kind of silence that tightens the gut and turns certainty into glass. Before dawn, Malik wandered the house like a man who owned everything except himself. Pride argued. Doubt watched. Downstairs, for the first time in weeks, the boys ate without trembling. In his office, a blue notebook waited by the keyboard. Isla had held doses and routines. Yes, but also attention written as care. Nabi tenses at first touch. Soft music helps. Samir laughs during bath when the yellow duck appears. Both resist male contact, not a report, a human gaze. Guilt pressed his chest. Across town, Isla entered the shelter where she had once volunteered. A faint mark traced her face. She did not hide it. She taught children to draw feelings with color, yet the image that would not leave was 2 boys asleep, without fear. Part of her still sat at the edge of that bed, guarding their breathing. At breakfast, no one spoke. Malik kept searching for a hinge, some first word that might open a door he had nailed shut. Amal, the housekeeper, left an envelope on his desk. Inside lay a copy of Samir's drawing. Red circle body, 2 eyes, a blue band slicing through. The shaky word Isla in the corner. Malik's throat closed. In the shelter, Isla found a stray notebook on her table with a folded page. Nabi's circles, a sun, 3 stick figures with hands joined, the middle one with long hair. She pressed the paper to her chest, unsure how it had found her. In the mansion, Malik faced siblings who asked why he had dismissed the one person whose presence had helped. Recognition proved heavier than rage. A dark car idled across the street for 20 minutes. Its window lowered only enough for breath. Later, Amal arrived at the shelter with donations, lists, folded clothes, and a sentence spoken as if it were housekeeping. Sometimes what men cannot do, women fix in silence. Near evening, a grainy photo slid under Isla's door. Samir holding a book, Nabi smiling in the library, a note in a trembling hand. Are they all right? That same hour, an elder advisor told Malik the truth as if it were weather. If you mean to keep your sons, relearn fatherhood and manhood. The words did not flatter. They held. Night again. A brown envelope waited at the shelter gate, a laminated copy of the household rules Isla had written, now bearing a new line at the bottom, simple and precise. We are ready to listen if it is still possible. She read it again and again, searching for manipulation, for bargaining, for the trap of guilt. She found only something she did not expect from power, admission, and a request to be taught. Accepting would mean reopening a door she had locked from inside. Refusing would leave 2 boys where fear grows. Both choices would cost her. One offered a path, just before 5 Malik came himself. No driver, no entourage. The blazer of a businessman over a man who had not slept. He asked the receptionist to tell Isla, and then waited in the fern-lined side court. They faced each other without furniture, without titles for shelter. I am not a man of speeches, he said. Good, she answered. I am not a woman. Of easy forgiveness, he kept his eyes on hers. You were right. They slept because they trusted you. I mistook care for threat. Control has kept me upright, and when it slips, I reach for force. I reached for it against you. No excuse. Ownership. If you came for your conscience, Isla said, it is not enough. I came because absence makes my sons smaller and me too. I need to learn a different way. She did not soften. I have no answer today. When you do, he said, you will know where to find me. Morning remade the house in small ways. Malik brewed coffee himself and sat with the twins as if the chairs were new. Samir spoke of a blue stone Isla had given him to keep in his pocket. Nabi asked whether good dreams could be trained like birds. Malik listened without interrupting. Contracts waited. He postponed them all. Power felt flimsy beside the fragile work of steady attention. Across town, Isla drank tea in a square and replayed Malik's gaze. It was not pleading, not theatrical repentance. It was the square look of a man who would have to change in public beginning at home. Apologies cannot Unraise a hand. Action can redraw a map. Asterisk. The shelter director called Isla into a small office with fading paint and a window that stuck. A medical foundation had offered funding for a children's program. The signature read, Al Parperi Foundation. There were no cameras, no photos, no ribbon to cut. The proposal was clean, detailed, and grounded in the practices Isla had kept in that blue notebook. At the bottom, a line weighted like a bridge. This project will be led by whoever has courage to listen more than speak, not a lure, a choice. Isla stepped into the yard, felt the wind cooled the heat behind her eyes, and understood. He had begun to move the weight he could. Asterisk, just after 9, the gate opened and a white car rolled in. Isla walked to the door alone, hair caught back, eyes steady. The silence in the foyer was the kind that precedes real conversation. Malik stood in the sitting room without guards or papers. You are different, she said. I had to lose something to grasp what I could not afford to lose. He answered, why call me back? Because my sons need you, he said, and because I need help to become who they need. I will not return as staff, Isla said. I return only as an equal, with voice and autonomy. That is what I am asking, he replied. Presence, listening, partnership. She considered, then nodded once. We will write the rules together. They shook hands. Not reconciliation, foundation. Asterisk, the twins froze, then sprinted. Samir wrapped himself around Isla's legs. Nabil whispered, you really came back. Yes, she said, and we will do things differently. Afternoon light turned the garden brass and honey, while Malik watched from a respectful distance. I have never seen this house so alive, Amal murmured, setting down tea. That night, the silence in the mansion changed species. It was no longer the hush of control or the vacancy of grief. It was the quiet of work being repaired from the inside. Asterisk, bedtime returned like a craft rather than a battle. Isla finished a story. You can stay tonight, Papa, Samir mumbled. Malik tucked the blanket and met Isla's look with something that was not ownership, gratitude. Later, they sketched an educational program for the foundation that honored sensory needs, predictable rhythms, careful transitions, fewer alarms, more choice. Morning lagged into pancakes and flour and laughter as Malik failed joyfully with a spatula. Before evening, he handed Isla an envelope. Legal partnership, work recognized in ink. Respect is proven, not offered, he said. Then you are learning, she answered. Asterisk, by night, the house settled around them like a tent repaired at last. Canvas tighter at the seams, wind sounding softer through the joints. Isla admitted a truth she had tried to outrun. Fear had made her leave too quickly. Dignity had made her return differently. Malik did not contest it. You left me space to see who I was, he said. And in that space, I saw the man, my sons. Were learning from. They let the sentence stand like a lantern between them. In the days that followed, presence stopped being an emergency response and became a routine. The rules Isla had written were rewritten together. Not as edicts, but as living agreements. Wake times softened, transitions gained warning, alarms gave way to music. Bedtime became a ritual with predictable steps that children could trust. The staff received training not in obedience but in attunement. How to meet eyes without forcing contact. How to offer a choice that is real. How to speak in the key of safety. Malik worked on a different syllabus. He practiced apology without a conjunction. He learned to narrate his own state in plain words. I am tense. So I will take a breath so that the twins could borrow his calm rather than his fear. He began to use his title to open doors he had never noticed, not for himself but for the rooms where children wait. The foundation's charter shifted from reputation to repair. Hospital partnerships included sensory-friendly clinics, quiet waiting rooms, and routines written in language families can wield. There were Russians. A storm ripped power from the mansion one evening, and Nabil froze in a hallway that suddenly felt like a tunnel. Samir clenched until his fingers blanched. Malik reached too quickly, and both boys recoiled. Isla placed a hand on the wall at their height and hummed the tune she had used the first week. Malik stepped back, knelt, and waited. Until the boys leaned forward, the light returned. So did breath. Asterisk. Everyone learned that repair is practice, not miracle. In the library at night, Isla and Malik drafted a program they called Presence as Method. It was simple and difficult. Adults would narrate choices, model waiting, and mark progress not by compliance but by regulation, connection, and joy. The boys became its first authors. Samir added a page about the blue stone and what holding it did for his chest. Nabil drew a map of the house with quiet islands where one could pause without being hunted by questions. Amal suggested a kettle, always on in the afternoon, and a basket of small comforts at each landing. The wider world raised its eyebrows, as it always does when hierarchy bends. Some donors withdrew, hungry for glossy metrics. Others arrived, hungry for results that a child can actually feel. Malik discovered that the cost of doing the right thing is the price of leaving certain rooms forever, and that the reward is a home where your name is not shouted to make things move. He started sleeping again, Not because deals closed, but because two small bodies slept without fear on the second floor. On a Thursday, Isla took the twins back to the shelter for a drawing afternoon. The children there saw the way Samir and Nabil looked at her and understood without a briefing. Respect travels faster than gossip. Nabil gave back the bear he had once sent as a message, not because he no longer needed it, but because it now belonged to a story finished on that page. Samir read aloud from a book with the yellow duck and laughed at the same place as before. The staff watched the loop close and felt hope as a physical warmth. One evening, Malik found the old blue notebook and opened to the first page Isla had written in his house. He copied a line onto fresh paper and placed it in the front hall where gilded things used to go. Care is not control. It is listening without trying to silence. Visitors asked whether the quote was from some philosopher. A practitioner, Malik said. He meant Isla. He meant his sons. He meant anyone who has ever learned to hear before they fix. None of this was a romance, though tenderness lived in the edges. They were partners in a craft, classmates in a course without grades, guardians of a small republic where safety and voice weigh more than gold. What began by accident, survived conflict, and outlasted pride now stood on bedrock. Not spectacle, not debt, not hierarchy, respect. Where respect takes root, love of children, of truth, of one another can grow without asking permission, and a house can change its weather. That is the work that remains, and the promise worth keeping. In time, even the architecture learned new habits. Doors once kept shut for ceremony began to open for need. Corridors built to impress now led to places that soothed. The calendar changed shape. Fewer banquets, more quiet mornings. Fewer statements, more check-ins. Staff meetings started with a breathing minute and ended with one question. What helped you feel safe today? Malik surprised himself by answering with specifics, not slogans. Isla surprised no one by turning answers into practice. The twins grew in ordinary ways that felt like miracles. Healthier appetites, surer steps on the stairs, questions that expanded instead of folded. On the first rainy weekend of the season, Samir asked to read to his father. Nabil asked to draw a map of everywhere in the house where quiet lived. They used crayons, not blueprints. The map went on the fridge beside a crooked pancake recipe. Visitors blinked and then smiled. It was hard to argue with a home that finally sounded like one. On the anniversary of the day Isla first crossed the forbidden threshold, they marked the date without speeches. Malik cooked. The boys set the table. Amal lit a small candle and said, simply, we kept going. No one corrected her grammar. No one needed to. After dinner, the four of them walked the long hall that used to feel like a museum. It was just a hall now, with shoes tucked against the wall and a forgotten toy near the stairs. That is how revolution hides in the unremarkable. They paused at the bedroom door, not to repeat history, but to honor it. And then they kept walking toward the library where new pages waited. Respect, okay.